This India, with its 100 imaginable futures, that I came in search of special, prodigious beings, men capable of working miracles. I visited monasteries and ashram temples, and I met and talked to gurus, fakirs and sadhus. But finally I had to admit to a certain sense of frustration. I felt that what I had seen was closer to cheap trickery than to the essence of the true miracle. Eventually I was to find the truth in deepest India, in the authentic rural India, the India of the 600,000 villages.
ఏమి లేదు మంచి సాయం చేసి పుణ్యాత్ముడు చెక్ డ్యామ్ కట్టించిడే బావి పెట్టించిడే మరి మిషన్ తెచ్చేసిడే
తరారు వచ్చినట్టు చాలా మేలు ఇప్పుడు పిల్లలకు బాగు లేకుంటే పైకి లేపుతారు మాకు బాగు లేకుంటే పైకి లేపుతారు
గవర్నమెంట్ వాళ్ళు చేసి అట్లా నిలిచిపోలేదు మేమేమి చేయాలి ఊరుకోకుండా
బడి పిల్లలకి సాయం చేస్తున్నారు బడి నేర్పుతున్నారు కాలు చేతులు లేని వాళ్ళకి సాయం చేస్తున్నారు ఫెరార్ వాళ్ళు
పొద్దు పూసలు పోయి కరెంట్ స్తంభం పట్టుకొని కరెంట్ షాక్ వచ్చింది గవర్నమెంట్ హాస్పిటల్లో పోతే సరైన.
This is the umbrella man, known to all, the true worker of the small everyday miracles. It was in 1969 that he chose Andhra Pradesh, one of the poorest states in the country, for his mission. He set up in the district of Anantapur, the city of infinity, and his work covers an area of 20,000 square kilometers and extends to over 600 villages. It's a semi-desert land, once considered uninhabitable by geologists who recommended that it be abandoned. The umbrella man made the water flow from the dry bowels of the earth. He reforested the fields. He built fertile orchards where once there had only been a barren, desolate wilderness, where the ploughs turned up nothing but stones. He changed the very landscape of the region, building dams and reservoirs and digging wells. And he has saved thousands and thousands of children from the untouchable castes, from ignorance and illiteracy.
Akilam. Ginkaram.
Indira Gandhi herself offered her support to the celebrated Father Ferrer, who was later to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He subsequently left his order, but he continued his work in another state, Andhra Pradesh, some 3 times the size of Spain. There he was joined by several Indian volunteers and by an English journalist, Anne Perry, who was completely dedicated to his work and who was later to become his wife. He became familiar with this rural India, the India of the caste system, and integrated into it. He adapted to its ancient customs and learnt its language, Telugu.
La pobreza, el sufrimiento, no está para que lo entienda, sino para que lo resuelva.
Alone and without international aid, Ferrer was never discouraged. He travelled through the muddy villages with no running water, electricity, schools, hospitals, doctors or roads. It was to be a tremendous task. And to face up to the challenge, Vicente Ferrer set up the Rural Development Trust, the RDT, an association made up of engineers, doctors and school teachers, all Indian and all volunteers. It has a central staff of 16 who discuss and approve each project. From the outset, his work extended to 300 villages and a population of 500,000 people, to whom he was to apply his philosophy and his truth.
La verdad no la puedo ver en ninguna parte. La verdad la encuentro plasmada en el vaso de agua que das al sediento, en el pedazo de pan que compartes con otro, en la palabra de esperanza que das a un desesperado. Allí está la verdad. ¿Dónde está la verdad? Pues está aquí, concreta, que la vemos día a diario. No sé por qué nos empeñamos en buscar la verdad no sé dónde, en este cielo inmenso, si está aquí.
On this barren plateau, where the little water that was available was often polluted, under a blazing sun, epidemics regularly decimated the population. I use the past tense because Ferrer's arrival was to bring about a radical change. Formerly, there was no health service. The only remedies available were ointments, prayers, and offerings to the gods. Life expectancy was about 50 years. Today, it has risen to 65. It was Ferrer's wife, Anne, who took charge of the question of health. Faced with a catastrophic situation, Anne looked for emergency solutions. If there are no doctors and no hospitals, she thought, at least we can give a few volunteers the basic knowledge necessary to help others. And thus she created the figure of the social worker. These were mostly women, who, thanks to courses in preventative medicine, could offer basic first aid in each village. This primitive but essential system took hold throughout the area, and an effective and inexpensive health network was created, offering its services to all.
El oriente es cerrar los ojos, la profundidad interna. El occidente es abrir los ojos, el dinamismo, la fuerza, el ir a los demás.
One of Vicente Ferrer's basic principles is to raise women's social level, to free them from ignorance, and to make them aware of their rights. And for this purpose, an incentive program has been set up to encourage young girls to attend school. Women's association called Shamgans have been set up in nearly all the villages to help women to be more economically independent. Country women, who used to be reticent about birth control, have now begun to accept the idea of family planning. The RDT offers them this possibility, but as Ferrer himself says, the best contraceptive is development.
After I finish studying my law, I surely want to help Vicente Ferrer because he's a very big person here, and the way he helps the poor people amazes me. He's being a foreigner and he's helping people in India. And that amazes me. I don't see any Indian who's doing that much for Indians. So I really want to help him.
El sentido de nuestra vida, ¿por qué? ¿Para qué somos y estamos? Entonces, la respuesta más simple es que estamos para remediar los sufrimientos, las guerras, las injusticias. Este es el sentido de nuestras vidas. Ayuda, inspira, da calor, da amor. El sentido de la vida está aquí y nada más.
If there exists a caste which is even poorer and more outcast than the untouchables, then it must without a doubt be the invalids. Up to now they were rejected by their families because they were of no use, and the future of a blind person, a polio victim, or a paraplegic was to starve to death in the most absolute loneliness. Anne Ferrer became the apostle of this particular cause. She built special schools, a mental rehabilitation centre, and a school for invalids, as well as 2 centres specialising in the manufacture of artificial limbs. Today, united under the protection of the RDT, they have formed an association to protect their rights. Their leader, Tima Reddy, used not to be able even to move his hands. Today he gets about in a tricycle. He has difficulty speaking.
went to a village of those so-called untouchables, and we put the customary question: what is the thing you most need? Then an old man gets up and without any emotion says, well, we want a small road to go to the cemetery. I was really, then he saw the surprise in my face. He says, no, it's very simple. I am not allowed, we are not allowed to carry the dead person through the village. Therefore, we have to go through many rice fields, and walking is very difficult. So sometimes from the palanquin, the body falls in the water. So that is, we feel it very much because it is one of us who has died. So when we reach the cemetery, then we are all together, we remember him, we explain histories about him, and then we feel that we are all one in death and also in life, also when one is born. So it's a very simple reason. Then I thought, really, that is true. It is the real solidarity in poverty.
Poverty, overpopulation, and ecological destruction go hand in hand. If you're poor, you cut down trees to cook and keep warm, and this in turn adds to the destruction of the environment. When there's a drought, famine increases. If you're poor, you have more children, and the devastation gets worse. The only way to reduce poverty and overpopulation is to improve environmental conditions. The purpose is to preserve the fertile soil which had heretofore been washed away by the monsoons, to control the water supplies by means of small dams and containing walls, to encourage reforestation, and to develop new agricultural practices which can better stand up to drought.
My name is Miss Nalini. I had completed my engineering degree with first class. There is no good opportunity in government and private sectors, so I came to Father Ferrer to give a opportunity to me. So he had given an opportunity in working in a big projects. So I have managed 40 to 50 members laborers. Now I am happy with this job.
The work of the ecological team does not end here. They have built 400 family biogas plants using animal dung to create a gas which can be used for cooking, thus preventing the need to cut down trees and making the work of the women considerably easier. In this inhospitable land, condemned to desertification, which hardly benefits from the monsoon rains and where water is scarcer, Vicente Ferrer has managed to create fertile farming land capable of producing 2 crop yields per year of either rice, peanuts, barley, mangoes or avocados. After nearly 30 years in Anantapur, Ferrer has shown that human will can move mountains and that solidarity is more than just an empty word.
Vicente Ferrer no es nada, pero si es algo, o quiere ser algo, es ser un hombre contemplativo en la acción. Porque tenemos un equipo muy bueno. La gente, está Ana, mi mujer, que es como un ángel de caridad, y un grupo de directores que desde hace años y años están trabajando con nosotros y han vivido todas esta doctrina, la doctrina de la acción buena, el bien hacer.
Looking at these little boys and girls with their satchels and their slates, singing their lessons, one is reminded of the first days of state schools in Europe. But here in India, it's a revolutionary change. Just 20 years ago, the more than 20,000 children in this area who today attend the Ferrer Project schools would have been illiterate for no other reason than that most were the children of untouchables or the lower classes. For Vicente, education is the first step to development, the necessary means to transform society and to free it from the yoke of ignorance. Where once it was unthinkable that the son of an Arisha, an untouchable, could become a doctor or an engineer, today it is a reality. Universities have opened their doors to the untouchables. By day and by night, Vicente Ferrer's workers, true messengers of peace and prosperity, travel the length and breadth of India. Beneath an umbrella to protect him from the sun and to prevent the spread of the skin cancer he suffers, Vicente travels on, opening new horizons. He's like a rebel warrior, fighting against the odds to establish an empire of freedom and equality for the marginated castes of India.